Welcome to the Main Street Business Insight Podcast,
featuring the stories of America's downtown and neighborhood entrepreneurs.
There's so much about being a Main Street business that is intertwined with what it means to be part of a community.
The impact that it has on creating jobs, occupying vacant storefronts, improving the quality of life, like this is a big deal.
What advice would you give to other Main Street businesses?
Investing in yourself is the most important thing that you can do.
What was that experience like for you to reach out and, learn from others?
Any entrepreneur getting into business, I highly recommend find the people that you trust that'll tell you the thing you may or may not want to hear when you need to hear it, and who will stand by you in helping to solve your challenges.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Main Street Business Insight Podcast. Hope you all had a wonderful holiday season, and thanks for joining us on what's going to be an amazing show. Now, before I introduce the show's guests, I want to provide a little bit of context. Main Street has always been a place for retail and dining, services, and of course, living. But few may realize that manufacturing has also played a large role in both Main Street's history, but very much its future as well. Think of all the old tanneries and woolen mills that have now been restored into housing and other mixed-use developments. Fast forward to present day, and manufacturing takes on a little bit different look along our main streets. Most of you are probably familiar with microbreweries, of course, representing what is often referred to as craft manufacturing. You see, unlike the past, modern-day Main Street manufacturing is quite diversified, ranging from coffee roasters and apparel manufacturers, fragrance designers, and of course, brand creators. They also have an element not found in the past. There's typically a retail component now, as small-scale manufacturers represent a curated and experiential retail component that's not simply purely transactional. In fact, I would contend Main Streets are as important to manufacturing as industrial parks, accelerating more consumer-facing products through this combination of production and retail. Our latest data through Main Street America suggests that within our network, there are already 25,000 or more small-scale manufacturers and brand creators. As such, we're launching new programming and opportunities to accelerate this scaling through what we call Made Originals. Now, Made Originals programming will lie in four primary buckets. First is creating a national market for Main Street manufacturers and brand creators to sell and expand their reach. We also have education and training accelerators through our newly launched Small Business Hub. Certifications represent another area, and access to capital for scaling, like our partnership with consumer capital gurus, New Market. So for an early preview, and check out some wonderful stories around what it means to be a small-scale manufacturer on Main Street, you can check out www.madeoriginals.org. That's www.madeoriginals.org. More to come, so stay tuned. And let's get on to the show. Our guest today is Kim Redeker, owner of Sweet Granada in Emporia, Kansas. Now, Kim represents what it means to be a Main Street, small-scale manufacturer. She has an amazing brand identity built on quality and agility for speed to market with new ideas. She also is incredibly savvy with market diversification and overall growth strategies. I'm going to leave it there because I've talked long enough. Now let's welcome Kim to the show. Enjoy. Hey, Kim, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you live, so to speak, in person, even though this is being recorded. But so glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
That's right.
My first podcast, kind of a bucket list thing.
A bucket list. The Main Street Business Inside podcast has finally made someone's bucket list. I am a happy camper for sure. All right, Kim, I teed you up knowing that we start our show. This is really about telling the stories, these amazing stories of Main Street, small business owners like yourself, sprinkling in a little bit of comedy, a little bit of crying, or whatever we need to do. But it starts with the journey, because I think most people don't recognize there was life before the store. There was life that then led up, and we're always curious about sort of how you got here and how the Sweet Granada came to be. So, how about giving us a little bit of an intro to Kim and your story?
Sure, sure. I deal with chocolate, so I don't think we'll have any tears today.
Chocolate sweet. I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet, pretty happy. It's a sweet gig.
There we go.
So, a lot of people assume when they ask about our startup or how we began, they assume that we were hobby chocolatiers, that we were making chocolates at home. And the truth is, we weren't. I actually come from a sales and marketing background. I graduated from the University of Kansas with a journalism degree and had been working sales and marketing, and went on a road trip with my mom. And she was getting ready to retire, and we just decided, it'd be super fun to work together all day. We might just, start up a business. We had no idea what we wanted to do. But we had a great road trip, and I decided I'm going to make that happen. And at the time, our community was wrapping up a huge capital campaign to renovate a historic Granada theater there in our downtown district in Emporia. And it was just wrapping up, and this great coffee shop had opened up in a tiny little storefront, and there was a mirror storefront on the other side of the theater. And I called my mom and I said, have you ever thought about like opening a little shop? And she's like, what? No, I have not.
I didn't remember this conversation you had.
No. And so I talked her into coming over. We looked in the window. There was, wires hanging from the ceiling, 20 years of dust on the floor. I thought there's no way she's going to go for it. And she turned to me, looking through this grungy window, and she said, what about chocolate? And that was kind of where it started. Like I said, I didn't know anything about candy making. I knew how to sell things, and I knew that it was important to start with a good foundation. So we went slow. We did a good, solid business plan. We worked closely with Emporia Main Street, with the Small Business Development Center, to do good cash flow projections. I was confident in the marketing plan, knowing the trends were good, at that time for gourmet chocolate. But they helped me figure out all the things I didn't know, like cash flow. And so 4 months later, we signed a lease on this beat up little 500 square foot storefront. It was just my mom and I. We were the first and only employees. And, now 21 years later, we employ, anywhere depending on the time of year, 21 to, 28 employees.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're no longer in that cute little storefront.
I was going to say, that can't fill those people.
No. But I did move the only place in the world I was willing to move, and that was next door. So when
beautiful how that happens.
I loved our location. And when that storefront became available, we jumped on it. And so now we're in about a 3,200 square foot space directly next, right south of the original store. And like I said, we have most of our staff courses on the manufacturing or production side, but we have about a staff of 8 in our retail shop there in Emporia, and another 8 at our second retail location up in Kansas City, Missouri.
Wow. So we've got expansion that occurred during this period of time as well.
Pretty new. Yeah. The retail expansion is very new. But the production expansion, we actually had 2. We started with offsite production in 2009.
Okay.
That was our first expansion when we were making all of our candies literally like 3 feet behind the candy case. So people were coming in and they could practically reach
Like a
across the
galley
counter
kitchen.
and dip their fingers into our chocolate machines. And so the first Christmas that we were literally running our tiny little machines about 20 out of 24 hours to keep up with the Christmas demand. That's when we knew we had to expand. And I just wasn't willing to move. I loved our location. The Granada Theater was, up in full swing. It was anchoring this exciting new arts and entertainment district in downtown Emporia. There was a lot of reinvestment going on. So we did an offsite production that got us through for about 4 or 5 years. And then, like I said, when that storefront opened up just south of us, we jumped on that.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. You're already going to take me down a tangent. I told you we would be off script, but I didn't
That's
expect
okay.
it this quickly. So your expansion in the story for me, and I think this is key as we think about like small scale manufacturers, small scale producers on main streets. There comes a time as you're being successful and you're growing, I suspect, where you have to make some big decisions relative to just footprint, the hiring, which brings in a whole another degree of complexity around HR to legal to capital issues with equipment. And I'm wondering if you don't have to go so deep, but I'm really curious about how you approach that in your journey about kind of making that leap from kind of really small scale, sort of micro, where people can just leap across and
Mhm.
dip their hand in the chocolate, so to speak, but to where, now you've got, offsite industrial or you're expanding in your current footprint. Like, how does that all occur?
Well, I tell people this comes up sometimes in panels and interviews, like, what was one of the biggest mistakes you made as a small business owner? And I can honestly say probably the biggest one I made was expanding too slow.
Too slow. Okay.
I really drug my feet on it mainly because, the location. I just loved where we were. I felt like it was uh, so much of our brand. We were an experience, the cutest little chocolate shop in Kansas. And I just was struggling with going somewhere else. And I wasn't thinking outside the box as far as, splitting production and
Mhm.
retail. But when I finally got over that hurdle, it was a relatively quick decision to go into an offsite production space. It was great timing in that it was a pretty inexpensive expansion because we were going into it wasn't prime foot traffic real estate, so it was affordable and it allowed us to open up some additional product lines or
Okay.
business lines such as wholesale. So that first production expansion allowed us to have the capacity then to offer wholesale, which, furthered our reach across the state of Kansas. So
Yeah.
now you could buy Sweet Granada chocolates in florists and coffee shops and bookstores, across the state. And so they'd be like, what is this Sweet Granada? And so then people started showing up in our retail store saying, I had this great espresso bar, when I was having my coffee last week, and we thought we'd just hop in and check you out. So, I mean, it all just dominoed into, great exposure and great retail growth as well. So not only did it answer the the logistic
Yeah.
challenges we're having, but it was a smart decision and allowed us to grow from a sales and income standpoint as
Yeah.
well.
Was part of your, to probe just a little bit, was part of your apprehension not so much a capital issue, but more of a brand identity? Were you concerned, like, the experience that one gets in like seeing the production or being near to production. Could you talk a little bit about that?
It really was. I mean, of course, I mean, the money concerns are always there,
Yeah.
aren't they always? But yes, I would say my first and most stressful part of the decision was uh, what it was going to do to our brand.
Yeah.
And we were so connected to, the Granada district, as we call it there in Emporia. I mean, it's in our name, for crying out loud, and so I just, it was kind of a unique holdup, but it was a holdup. I think that's kind of the story of most small businesses. I
Yeah.
mean, we all have our own unique challenges and situations, and but we're really good at figuring it out.
Yeah.
You know,
For
as
sure.
as
I always say
entrepreneurs,
Main Street small businesses are the most innovative, creative
Mm,
business folks I've ever run into.
right? And we work super hard, so that helps
Exactly.
too.
Exactly. That sort of brings me then to another question, creeping a little bit more to the present day in some ways. But the chocolate industry really ranges in size. You got like big behemoths like Nestle's all the way down to those that might be in their kitchen and selling at bake sales or what have you. Um, when you're thinking about the differences between where you're at now and mass production, where do you think you fall in that line, and where do you see that going in a way that kind of protects what you see as so valuable to the brand? Like, is there a happy spot there?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
happy chocolate spot?
I think so. I mean, I'm never going to be Milton Hershey, never
Yeah.
want to be, right? But I think there are, I mean, the reason I'm where I'm at and I do what I do is because I am so tied to my community. And so I think that there are real advantages we have as small scale producers that I think as long as I don't know, I think it just kind of comes down to, knowing what you can do, knowing what you can't, and then, doing the things you can do really, really well.
Yeah.
And I think that always sets you up for growth and success. So, for instance, I think one thing we can do really, really well as a small scale chocolate producer is we can move really fast on kind of super trends. So, like several years ago was the cocoa bombs. Do remember the cocoa bombs? I don't know.
That
They're
must be old-fashioned
yeah,
chocolate.
yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, maybe you remember more recent one, the Dubai bars.
Oh, I'm so over that. I love pistachio, so I'm
Okay.
all in, which is
So
huge in Europe, by the way. I'm starting to see it
right,
more in the
right.
US, but, like, yeah, it's big.
Exactly, but when those first hit, like, all the TikTok videos and, social media, all those messages started pinging in
Okay.
our direct messages saying, "Can you make this?" "Have you ever heard of this?" Well, kinda like the cocoa bombs 8, 9 years ago, we're like, "Yeah, we could do that." And so we did, we jumped right on it. And so we were able to move super fast and take advantage of those really, hot trends,
Yeah.
that are, they come and go fast, but you have about a 6-month window, one, before the trend kind of fizzles, but also before the mass market starts getting them in every single gas station, every single grocery store. And so I think a small scale producer has that advantage. And so, we're always poised to do that. And
Yeah, that's a good
those are the
point.
little things that, yeah, maybe, I remember the Dubai bar kind of hit and for us, I think kind of spring, early summer, which isn't like a super great time of year for us. But you infuse, an extra $25,000 on one program, totally out of the blue. Those are the things that, keep you going and make you successful for the next one.
Exactly. Yeah, now I've got Dubai chocolate on my.
No, sorry.
This one's going to be a hard one for me to get out of this podcast without wanting some chocolate real quick. I want to talk about, you mentioned something in this last comment about like your commitment to community, and obviously that shows through and through. But I'm wondering, sort of in the inverse, with that deep connection, how do you feel like that system of support? I think when it comes to like production and manufacturing, especially, we often think of like industrial parks and big business and those kinds of things. How do you feel like, as a small, like on the smaller scale, you've got that ecosystem of support, and how have you worked with locals to make that happen?
Sure. Well, I mean, certainly for me personally, the biggest area of my company growth has been on the manufacturing or production side. And I have relied on, many community resources, obviously Emporia Main Street, a big one. But I think the deeper we're tied to the community in any respect, the stronger and healthier we are as a business, and the stronger and healthier we are as a community. And so, as a small maker, I feel like, we make our community more interesting.
Yeah.
That I I mean, sure, you can order a box of chocolates on the internet or online from your recliner, but that's kind of boring.
Right.
I mean, and so, a small community maker or producer makes their communities more vibrant, more interesting. They attract visitors, especially if it's done well. And I think, we've had the opportunities and the guidance to incorporate that in, everything we do, whether it be tours, events. We put a great big window in our retail store so people can see the production process. And, all adds to the experience, which, you talk about competition, that's something that certainly sets a small maker apart from a big, global mass producer is, we can create an experience.
Totally agree. And I think what often gets lost in thinking about like small scale manufacturers and sort of the big behemoths is, when you look at the data, most of your small business owners come from those areas. They're not having to be recruited in or whatever. They
Mhm.
launched and they grow and they scale, which typically means there's a lot of like ties to the community. And so
Mhm.
they tend to stay there as well as they grow. And to your point, I'm astounded at the employment numbers, that
Right.
Main Street businesses can also be pretty large employers when it gets right
Yeah.
down to it. And
Yeah.
so,
And their money stays in the
exactly.
community. And so there's all those positives for sure. And that, not every small producer is going to become huge. We all love the stories of, the, woman who started making face cream in her kitchen and, revolutionized the industry and, you know, but even moderate and small scale producers can have really big community impact in a lot of ways. Like I already mentioned, making the community more interesting, attracting visitors, and keeping their dollars local, which they do because it's important to them.
Now, one of the things I know that has also been part, and maybe it's part of your wholesale or just retail in general, is that sort of quickness to market. And one of the things that I found interesting, obviously, I've been to Emporia a number of times. I've had many conversations with Casey Woods, who directs the Main Street program there. Has been this concept that I find absolutely fascinating on a Main Street, is this Fab Lab.
Yeah.
It's essentially creating molds to casting dies to, you name it, prototyping in a way to assist not only downtown businesses, but businesses throughout the region, in fact.
Right.
And we're using that in conjunction with a project that we're doing with you on a new brand called Made Originals. And I wonder if you could just talk about like what the Fab Lab has meant in terms of like speed to market, how you've leveraged that.
Sure, sure. Well, I think, like most people, they hear the word Fab Lab and they, I don't know, they think like, silly putty or something. I mean, like, what are you talking about? And I'm old enough, I didn't know what it meant, but it didn't take long for us to, for the bells to really go off. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And we're just dipping our toe in it. And like you said, we're using it for right now for mold generation. The local Fab Lab, which is literally right across the street from us, is able to, within just a few days, generate a custom mold that we can then turn around for particularly corporate customers, events. It really gives us an advantage in the fact that we can do small runs, without a huge custom mold investment. And so it just makes the cost, within reach to almost every single customer we have. And it's really been a great, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of a catalyst for us to, to be more creative in how we expand our corporate giving, marketing. And we probably have, I think just in December alone did I don't know, 6, 7 new custom molds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then I think, I got a pretty big project that's been brewing that, I think I'm ready to kind of take the next step and start talking to them about, how can they help me solve some of our manufacturing challenges, because there's one product line that I think we're going to have to scale on, to keep up with demand and to
Exciting.
stay profitable. And yeah, so it's a huge tool that we're very fortunate to have. I only hope that every Main Street can eventually enjoy something like it because it's certainly been good for us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love to hear it, and it certainly has been awesome to us as well as we're emerging in our new launch.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, every business has particular challenges. Some that are sort of sector related. Some are just internal ops or market related or what have you. And I'm wondering what keeps you up at night these days, and whether it's inputs or labor or pricing or
Well,
regulations, and are
yeah.
you kind of adapting,
Well, I would say very specifically to our industry, you may not heard, but cocoa prices
Mm,
have just been horrendous.
okay.
For
Yep.
about 2 years. So, that kept us up some nights. W we certainly, adapted, made the tweaks we needed to. Wasn't fun.
Wasn't
Had to
fun.
Yeah, but, it is what it is. Raised prices, but we brought back our loyalty program, which,
Okay.
we used to do. And so we had one vendor that I think had 3 really chunky increases in just over 12 months.
Oh,
So,
wow.
we had real, cost issues to deal with.
Yeah.
So we had to do some pretty healthy price increases, but bringing back the loyalty program really made a huge impact on our return customer rate. We saw, some ticks up in our average ticket. So, that was good. We took a hard look at our packaging, used all this inactive packaging that was sitting, back in the shelves and reduced
Clever.
the packaging cost by 16%, one year. And so, all the challenges are also opportunities. I know you've
Yeah.
heard it a million times. So it had the cocoa prices, they beat us, but they didn't, knock us out. And so it forced us to be creative, try some new things. That's been, really good for us in the long run. We'll definitely have positive impact moving forward. I would say, probably if I'm being honest, labor costs, starting to keep me up at night a little bit. And like the cocoa prices, we're pivoting. We're trying to make positive change. We've expanded our hiring process quite a bit. We hire a lot of young people, and we got kind of spoiled by doing 15-minute job interviews.
This is
And
where the
you just
complexity starts to creep
can't.
in.
Yeah, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And so we're making some improvements, some changes in how we hire, how we coach, and we're moving in a positive direction. Things like minimum wage
Yeah.
is going to be a concern.
Yeah.
That's an unknown. We're in rural Kansas. So it's important to us because we do love our staff. We love our community that, we're paying a fair wage. But, I worry, what would happen if we were, looking at a very high standard minimum wage that, maybe larger, um, different
Anticipated.
regions
Yeah.
they need that. But it would be a hard transition for us, like I said, in small, agricultural based
Yep.
community in the middle of Kansas. So those things, are float out there kind of, are worrisome. But
Mhm.
like I said early in our conversation, it's a great thing about entrepreneurs is, we figure it out. The challenges will keep coming, but, we're kind of light on our feet.
That's right. That's right. Able to pivot. Um,
Yeah.
is yeah, and agility for sure. When when you are thinking about changes that might need to be made, or you're entering an area where maybe you feel like uh maybe the knowledge base or skill set, you're still like learning. Um, is there do you have a go-to? Is it because you have a network of other business owners? Are you a watch YouTube solve my problem? Like how do you
Yeah.
solve challenges? How do you find information? I'm sort of curious.
Yeah. Well, I kind of have some go-tos.
Okay.
For industry specific things, we belong to a great trade association,
Perfect.
and it's small because we are a lot of small scale producers. It's Retail Confectioners International. So they're retail manufacturers, specifically in the chocolate industry. So that's great for very industry specific things. I lean on my staff a lot.
Okay.
I it's important to me to build and keep building an engaged and creative staff. And so I lean on them a lot, to, everything from, being sounding boards to brainstorming, because I mean, hardly anyone knows my business better than they do.
They're pretty close
So
to it.
right. And then of course, we my some of my favorite resources are our local Main Street organization, the Small Business Development Center there in Kansas has always been great. A few years ago, when I knew that we really needed to scale. I took a great SBA class. It was right at the start of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like my first online class, but it was great working with, or being engaging with 24 other small businesses across the state, across different types of businesses. And I still am using a lot of what I learned from that. I think that, um, you know, I, I, I am certainly a lifelong learner. And so I kind of welcome it in any forms. I mean, I just reread the E Myth, classic,
Yeah.
but I'm like, oh yeah, processes. Yeah. And so I don't know
Yeah, it
if I
always hits you at different times depending on where you're at in your
yeah,
life.
I don't know if I could pinpoint one thing,
Yeah.
but maybe a million little ones.
There you go. When sort of you look ahead, we talk about challenges, but when you look ahead, where are you seeing some of the most promising growth opportunities for your business, whether it's in new products, new markets, collaborations, anything like that?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but I would say for us, new products, in my head anyway, I kind of interpret it as new processes. I mean, we've got a signature item that um, we are going to have to start producing differently.
Mhm.
It is all by hand. And when I say by hand,
Oh,
I
okay.
mean,
So very high touch.
yes. And we just can't make any more of it,
Yeah.
how we're doing it. And so I would say one of my biggest growth opportunities is figuring out how to scale the manufacturing of that key signature item for us, so that we can, hit new markets with it. Do more wholesale. We do wholesale with it, but this is so crazy. I know, but it's all like, oh, do we want to tell them about Pop Choc?
Yeah.
We're going to be able to, make enough of that. And, we shouldn't be doing that. For me, that I think is big. And I don't know if I think that we're probably about ready to look at ways that technology can help us grow.
Sure.
I've taken a couple of, AI workshops
There you
and,
go.
kind of piddling around with that. And, it's kind of fun and exciting. And I do think that, um, technology could help us as a small maker,
Mhm.
reach some new markets and y- uh, new audiences that
Yeah.
we just haven't even really dreamed of yet. So,
Do you suspect, just out of curiosity, because you did talk earlier, obviously, about the wholesale side of the business, and I wonder, does that translate ever? That's still carrying your brand. Do you ever see third party for smaller kinds of things, or where you're white labeling any of your products? Or
we've had our first couple conversations with that just like in the last 12 months.
ah,
And we We are interested in doing that. Again, I think that, there's some equipment expansion we would need to do to make that most efficient
got it.
and profitable enough. Doing more of our own labeling and things like that instead of, the old fashioned peel stick,
Yeah,
things like that.
things that are
But
very
we're
labor
looking at it.
intensive.
We definitely have the opportunity to do some of that, probably a lot of that. And so I agree. I think that that's probably a good growth opportunity, but we'd have to, look at some new equipment
Yeah,
and
it's
that
all,
sort of
all
thing.
prioritization and see where you want to apply your time and capital.
Right. Right.
It's good to have a lot of opportunities, though.
It is. It
For you.
is.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic. We, Kim, we started the show with the journey. We like to end more on the sort of advice side, and recognizing that a lot of the listeners, while working in downtown revitalization, main streets, et cetera, many are other small business owners, and so this is our chance to kind of speak to them a little bit more, about any advice you have as a this amazing entrepreneur, small business owner, that you would give to other
Okay.
Main Street businesses or other small scale producers.
Well, I get asked if I have any regrets about opening my small business, and I have one, and it's still the same one I've had for 20 years, and that's that I didn't do it sooner.
Oh, okay.
So that would be my first bit of advice is, don't be discouraged by, your age or, what you think might be your opportunities. Just do your due diligence, visit with the experts that you can find and know in your local community. Write your business plan, do your cash flow projections, but really talk and get to know the people in your community. So, read and listen to the local news, know what's happening, really get to know your fellow local business owners. get involved, volunteer, make a difference in your community. I really believe that, if you love your community and you take care of your community, they're going to take care of you. They're going to love you, and they're going to help you make your dreams come true. I really believe that.
Wonderfully said. Beautiful. Kim, I'm so grateful that you were able to join the show and share all your wonderful background learnings, new opportunities, and most importantly as well, I really appreciate the work we've been able to do and what people are going to see soon with as we launch our Made Originals, concept, initiative, and programming. Utilizing chocolates is a great way to introduce the brand. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Chocolate's always a good idea.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. Perfect. All right. Thanks so much, Kim. All the best.
Thank you.
All right. Before we wrap up today's show, I've got some exciting news to share about what's coming next for Main Street America and how we're supporting small business owners. Now, we're launching 2 major initiatives that I think are going to be game changers for Main Street entrepreneurs. And honestly, they're big enough that we've got to put as much energy behind them as we can. So at the end of February, we're going to pause new podcast episodes now just for a while we build out these resources. But here's what you're going to get instead. And trust me, it's going to be terrific. First up is our new Main Street America Small Business Hub. Now, this is a comprehensive online platform we've been building. It's packed with the kind of tactical, actionable content you can frankly use in your business. We're talking like step-by-step guides, training modules, templates, tools, everything designed to help you become more sustainable and successful. And I think what's really important here is we're also building community. So yearned by many small businesses across the country that are feeling isolated, alone, and would love to be able to talk with other businesses experiencing the same things that they are. You get both learning and you sort of get that contact that you may be yearning for. That's always been the goal, and something you know well. Stronger businesses create stronger, healthier, more economically viable communities. Okay. Now that's up live right now. You can go to it. It's smallbusiness.mainstreet.org. That's smallbusiness.mainstreet.org. So go check it out, sign up, explore. It's all free. Share with your friends. Okay, second up is what we're calling Made Originals. And if you caught today's conversation with Kim, which obviously I hope you listened all the way through, you already heard a preview of this. We've got more than 25,000 small-scale manufacturers and brand creators in our Main Street network, from coffee roasters, apparel makers, fragrance designers, chocolatiers, you name it. And Made Originals is creating a national market where these producers can expand their reach. We're building education and training accelerators, certifications, and access to capital, specifically for scaling production. Learn more now, and if you're a small-scale producer yourself, make sure to sign up to enjoy the Maker Network. That's going to be at www.madeoriginals.org. One more time, www.madeoriginals.org. Now, we've also got more than 3 years of podcast episodes already in the library. That's hundreds of hours of conversations covering everything from succession planning to disaster recovery to scaling wellness businesses to navigating tariffs. All that stays available. It's not going away, okay? You just have to bear with me. So if there's a topic you need insights on, chances are we've got it covered. Dive into that back catalog, and you can catch that both on the Small Business Hub as well as our mainstreet.org website. And look, we're entrepreneurial. The world changes, opportunities evolve, and we adapt. So while we're passing new episodes for now, we're absolutely focused on delivering even more value to Main Street businesses through these new platforms. So here's what I want you to do. Head to smallbusiness.mainstreet.org and explore the Small Business Hub. If you're a maker or manufacturer, brand creator, check out Made Originals at madeoriginals.org. And subscribe to updates at mainstreet.org. Sorry, lots of websites, so you can stay connected with everything we're building. This shift is all about reaching more business owners with more practical support, the kind of real-world, accessible tools and resources that actually move the needle for your business and your community. So stay tuned, stay connected, and keep doing the incredible work you're doing on Main Street. We're not going anywhere. We're just expanding how we show up for you. So I'm Matt Wagner from Main Street America. This has been Main Street Business Insights. We'll see you next time.